happy 2024. Just like every other year, everyone's trying to figure out what does it mean for gold and silver? What's going to happen with gold and silver price going into 2024? Well, it's actually not too hard to see what the cards hold for gold and silver, and they're actually probably two different cases. First and foremost, silver. What's going to happen with silver? Well, first and foremost, the most important thing is to remember silver price is determined first and foremost by demand, industrial demand, not bullion. Bullion makes up a very small portion of what goes into, silver. So because of that, if you think, about where we are economically, contrary to popular belief, at least the uninformed to popular belief, the economy's been booming pretty strongly. Consumption is off the charts. The big question is, can it stay that way? Most likely it won't. Most likely demand for a lot of things that, contain silver, which would be, lots of different things contain silver, especially like industrial equipment, electronics, auto manufacturing. There's a lot of things that silver goes into that you don't think about on a daily basis. Now, as far as demand, if those things start to fall by the wayside, then that craters demand for silver, thus driving down premiums. Is it going to happen overnight? Probably not. But will it happen? Yeah, probably. And the thing is that for a stacker means that it could be the time that you've been waiting for to kind of back up the truck. Now, if you've been stacking since pre-2020, which everyone claims to, but there are many people that joined the stacking community post-pandemic, or at least during the pandemic. Why? Because during the pandemic, it got a lot of hype. Not just because, prices started going up, but there were things like the silver squeeze and other things like that brought up a lot of attention to, stacking. Because of that, people look back and they think, oh, I should have bought pre-pandemic. Like most things, silver and gold are somewhat cyclical. But the big thing with silver in particular is it's a lot more reactionary than gold. Gold, even though, price does move, it doesn't move quite in lockstep with, silver. And it's usually not as tied to necessarily what's going on in the economy. Now, again, my prediction is that silver prices come down pretty meaningfully this year. And so if you've been waiting on the sidelines to really, back up the truck and buy, you might want to start really looking at what it is you want. If you're a pure stacker, obviously you're going to go with, bullion, and, bullion bars. Bars are a good buy, especially because you're getting, good amount of ounces without all the premium. But again, even coins and rounds have their benefits. It's much easier to liquidate smaller amounts from rounds and coins than it is, potentially bars. Also, from what I understand, coins are a lot more popular in the United States than abroad, whereas Europe, bars are more popular than coins. Go figure. But at least for silver, this year in particular, probably going to be a good buying opportunity. The question is, how quickly can we get there? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, on the other side, gold. What's the case for gold? Is gold really going to move? Well, I wouldn't expect as much of a move from gold. Why? Because it just, there's just more certainty and stability with something like that than there is from, silver bullion, that kind of thing. That being said, what would drive prices of bullion, gold bullion, down? Well, it's actually pretty easy to see when you really think about it. And again, these kind of things, when you kind of dive into the details, it's harder for people to understand, gold, because it's more of a sovereign finance thing than silver. But one of the big reasons that gold took a big jump during the pandemic, or at least in the aftermath of the pandemic particularly, is in anticipation of rising rates. With all the debt that we created in 2020, interest rates were probably going to have to get raised at some point to deal with the inflation. The inflation's a normal symptom of creating that much liquidity in the system. You can't just, people always think about like the national debt and they think, oh my gosh, we have to pay that back. Well, first, no, it's not like your household finance. The national debt's really never meant to be paid back, at least as a person, like, you pay it off kind of thing. It's meant to be a constant rolling debt kind of thing. That's first. That's, again, a concept that most people don't understand. But secondly, one of the big things that people don't understand about just sovereign finance in general is with the national debt, or with the US dollar, really, the more debt that gets created, the more powerful the dollar becomes, because there's constant demand to pay those dollars, that debt, back with more dollars. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that really is the way that the system works. It kind of boggles people's minds. They can't wrap their head around it. But the more debt that you create, the more demand for the dollar there is, which is good for us. Why? Why would it be good to create debt? Well, let me tell you another secret. When you create more debt, when the US creates more, fiscal responsibility with all these, national debt per se, particularly US treasuries, that is the debt. It's not, a credit card. It's literally treasuries that are being, sold off here and there to, particularly the biggest holder of the national debt is Americans. So again, all these misinformed, theories about, the national debt and this and that and countries owning us. No. Understand who really owns the national debt. Okay, but that's beside the point. The key is those debts are paid with US dollars. And so the more of that you put into circulation, it creates demand for the dollar, which is good. Secondly, as far as the world and being the world reserve currency, what that allows the US to do is to export that inflation caused by our spending. Very interesting mechanism. The geniuses that came up with it, I give them lots of credit, because it's pretty crazy to be able to spend to your heart's delight and make basically the entire world, pay a price for it. Very interesting. But what does that mean for gold? Well, going back to gold, again, one of the big reasons that gold saw a big rise is because US treasuries, which are basically the new gold, had a lot of short-term risk because, rising interest rates. So instead of purchasing gold, purchasing treasuries, central banks said, you know what, let's buy gold, which is a comparable, very, very low risk asset, and hold that instead of US debt, because why would we want to hold, something that holds such a short-term risk with rising interest rates? Okay, makes a lot of sense. However, on the back end, now that interest rates are going to go down, it's the opposite. You do want to buy US debt. You do want to hold a very low risk asset that can appreciate, especially in the short run, with, instead of gold, which really doesn't hold too much capital appreciation. And there's also costs for holding gold. Whereas US Treasury, there's no holding costs. Gold, if you're holding physical bullion, whether you're a central bank or whoever you are, it costs money to hold that and ship it and do all the other things. US treasuries, you don't have that problem. So will those entities go back to holding US debt? They absolutely will. And it will happen in short order. That is not good for gold price. Well, it is if you're a buyer. It's not good if you're a holder. So again, same with silver. There's a lot of potential for price to come down. Is it going to be something that happens very quickly? Probably not. It's going to be over a period of time. But that being said, it's something that can, again, benefit you if you're a buyer. The bigger thing too to keep in mind is, where does this play in relation to everything else? People always try to relate gold and silver to the economy, it has nothing to do with any of that. I mean, silver possibly you could relate back to the economy, and it wouldn't be so much the economy other than manufacturing and consumption, which is what drives silver price. These are all interesting things as we go into 2024. Could something crazy happen that skyrockets the price? Probably, but it's not likely. And so you always have to kind of play the odds. With both of them, it's looking like 2024 will be a buyer's market.